should I, as a person who claims to be a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
have a point of view on immigration that is different from people who are not Christian?
Okay. Well, I don't know if I'd necessarily it's just going to be completely different than people who are not Christian. Because I think people who are not Christian, there's a plethora of viewpoints that are out there as well,
Right.
in regards to immigration. So you may end up finding yourself aligning with one, but I mean, hopefully not just because you're trying to align with someone else, but because that's where the Bible kind of leads you to.
Okay.
And so I think there is a perspective for the Christian. So if, so you take what's there in Leviticus 19 that I read just a little bit ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so where it speaks about, okay, if you've got a foreigner, he's residing there in your land, do not oppress him. Okay.
Okay.
And it goes on to say, you are to love him as yourself, for you are aliens in the land of Egypt, da, da, da. And we understand this is very specific to the Israel as a nation that was being formed, right?
Okay.
But I think the principle still applies that we should love. So there should be love.
Mm-hmm.
There should be mercy. And then that kind of plays itself out, even in Matthew 25, for example, where Jesus says, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And that's when Jesus is speaking about, hey, if you see someone that's without clothes, give them clothes. If you see someone who is thirsty, give them something to drink. If you see someone who is hungry, give them something to eat. Okay.
Okay.
And so he's saying, be merciful to people who need mercy. Okay. But I do think there's the other side of that, which is like the justice aspect. And so in Romans 13.
So now we're okay.
Yeah. So
all right.
Let me bring us a New Testament,
Here we go.
Romans 13, and maybe create a combination of Leviticus 19, Matthew 25, and Romans 13. So in Romans 13, it says, let everyone submit to the governing authorities, since there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are instituted by God.
Okay.
So then, the one who resists the authority is opposing God's command, and those who oppose it will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror they're not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Do you want to be unafraid of the one in authority? Do what is good, and you will have its approval. For it is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, because it does not carry the sword for no reason. For it is God's servant, an avenger that brings wrath on the one who does wrong. And so in Romans 13, it's establishing the fact that, all right, God has allowed there to be governing authorities on the earth. Okay. And the authorities there are there to keep law. Okay. That's what they're supposed to be there for.
Okay.
All right. And so therefore laws should be kept. And so I think when we talk about immigration, I think there's a way to hold mercy and love with justice and law.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I think the wrong perspective would be, all right, we're just going to, love means just to welcome everybody and to just come on in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that would be quote unquote loving.
Right.
But I don't think that's what love means. It just, it means to care for. It does mean to take care of those who are the least of these. But at the same time, there's the legal part of this,
mm-hmm.
right? So, but if they're coming in illegally, they're breaking laws. So law needs to be upheld. Because if there's no law being upheld, then you do have, like you said earlier, you just have anarchy, right? So how do we uphold law and have mercy simultaneously in this issue of immigration?
Lovingly sniping everyone that tries to cross our border. With kindness.
You're gonna kill him. You're gonna kill him with kindness.
Yes.
Okay, I don't think that's the right way to go about this. So no.
An A kindness 47. That was terrible.
That's one way to say it without us getting completely censored. All right, so I I think there's a way to acknowledge the fact that there are people that are trying to come, like if we're talking about America specifically, right? They're trying to come to America to have a better quality of life. Okay?
I was thinking about this episode before we started.
That's good.
Yesterday. Oh, yeah, it is. Wow. Okay. I guess I got to take it if I'm going to give it. But I was thinking about this episode before we started, and I was like, is this topic gonna, is this episode gonna last longer than the next, few months?
Oh.
And
yeah.
It's been going on forever.
Yeah.
Like, everyone likes it here. I mean, except for
people who don't.
Yeah, except for, the worst. Some.
You'll say it?
Communists.
Yeah. Except
they reluctantly stay in the hopes that they can make the place communist.
It's, conforming enough. We're all Marxists.
But so I was wondering about that, and it seems like this is going to be a thing that lasts forever.
I think so, and I think that so
I was like, is this relevant?
Right.
Like, it's going to be relevant for a really long time.
Yeah, and unless we do completely become a communist country, then at that point, not so much, right?
Right.
But
then we'll be going.
Right, then we'll be the ones leaving.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that there are people who are wanting to come to have a better quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I get that. And I mean, I was just talking to someone just within the last month from Venezuela. And Venezuela, and and because where they're fleeing, and where they're fleeing is it's terrible conditions down there.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of being able to come here and not have to live in that type of country is beyond appealing to
communism,
right? And that's what communism does,
mm-hmm.
right? And so they would be thrilled to get out. I mean, and they have already left Venezuela and are in another country, but are looking to possibly come here as well. But I think I understand there's people who want to come here. Like, I have friends who have come here, whether it's because they wanted to come to America for work or for job, or whether it was because they were actually having to flee the country they were in because of, political threat to their family, and so therefore they had to leave. And but I think there's a way. I mean, we have systems that are set up to allow people to come into America for asylum, to be able to have refugees that are brought here that go through the intentional process as well. And I think as a Christian, when we're looking at the idea of immigration, we always want to look at people or those that are wanting to immigrate here. They are people. They are image bearers of God. So I want to look at them as people, but then I also want to be able to say, but I am a citizen of heaven and a citizen of this country, right? My citizenship in heaven will always trump my citizenship here in this country. But being a citizen here in this country, we do have laws that we have to abide by. And so, therefore, if you're breaking law to enter this country, I think that's part of that Romans 13, no, that's not okay. That we have to uphold law. So then how do we create, and we already have a legal way to come into this country from another country. And I think,
and that takes 10 years.
It can take a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's reality. It can. And so, I mean, I know someone who's been here, and my gosh, it took their family almost a decade.
Yeah.
So it can take a long time.
Okay. So love people that are here.
Correct. Yeah.
As aliens.
Yeah. For those that are here, whether they're legal or illegal, they need to, we still have to love them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, they need to follow our laws.
Correct.
If they want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And our laws we're allowed to have laws no matter what they are in dealing with illegal immigration. And we as Christians should follow the law.
Correct. I mean, for example,
unless the law tells me to snipe them at the
border. Thankfully, the law's not telling you to snipe them at the border.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, like as Christians, we should want laws to allow for a civilized country. And like, I know you've seen the footage of, like police basically saying we can't do anything because they're illegals. Like we cannot actually enforce our laws on them because we are a sanctuary city. And they've taken that idea of sanctuary city so far that they can actually commit crimes and not be charged. That's crazy. Like that's way overstepping the bounds.
But isn't that the law?
And I think this is where it goes back to Israel, to consistency. Israel had laws that had to be applied to everyone there.
Okay. So we're not following the law we're not following the Bible, the example set in the Bible.
The principles of the Bible, right.
If we as governments are not applying our laws equally.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not Christian.
Well, I think it goes against at least it goes against the biblical principles that we find in Leviticus and in Numbers and even Ezekiel about how to deal with foreigners that are in our land. So like if you're allowing people to break law like and it just be okay, no, that's not okay.
So if you create a law,
it needs to go.
Laws to break the law,
right?
Then that's not Christian.
Yes, we don't need to have laws that allow people to break laws.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even if we're supposed to love them because they're aliens.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, loving them, but loving them doesn't always go, attaboy.
Right. But we should also love the people that are here already.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's the point of equal distribution of law.
Right. And I do think that actually is a really great point.
Okay.
Because I think sometimes what I hear from even some of my own Christian friends is a desire to want to so badly love the immigrant, they forget to love their actual own neighbor who's been there for their whole life.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's actually a great point.